India met today. The Union Health Minister met in the national capital on India's preparedness and where we stand vis-a-vis the battle against COVID-19 as China sees a surge. In fact, 4 cases have been reported of the Omicron subvariant BF.7. Apparently, the strain, according to reports, which is driving China's current surge of COVID cases, which have been detected in India so far. The first case of BF7, as per reports in India, was detected in October by Gujarat Biotechnology Research Centre. So far, 2 cases have been reported from Gujarat, while 1 has been reported from Odisha. And I'm being joined on the biggest story tonight this evening by Dr. Randeep Guleria, a former AIIMS director. Thank you, Dr. Guleria, for joining us on the broadcast. First of all, your assessment of what has been happening today. You've been a part of AIIMS for many years, and you've been a part of the task force. You know exactly the situation that we're dealing with or will have to deal with. Your view on where we stand today, Dr. Guleria.
So I think we need to be vigilant. We need to really do testing and genome sequencing, but there's no need for panic because of the simple reason that the situation in India is very different from what we are seeing in China. And that's for 3-4 reasons. One, of course, is that China adopted a zero COVID policy. That was useful in the beginning, but now it's creating a problem because you have a large part of the population, especially the older age group and those with comorbidities, that have not been exposed to the virus and have not been vaccinated. So they are as if you were in early 2020, where you had population which were not vaccinated and not been exposed to the virus, and therefore your immune system was not geared up to fight the infection. Secondly, we don't know about the efficacy of the vaccine and how it works against the new variants. And there is some feeling that it may not be that effective, and therefore the vaccine efficacy is less. And because of that, once the zero COVID policy was lifted, the virus was able to spread quickly. And we know that the new variant BA.7 has 2 things with it. One is that it has more chance of spreading, it is more infectious. And we also know that it has the ability to develop immune escape. That means if you had some immunity in the past, it will escape that immune system mechanism and cause infection. And because of that, the chance of infection are high. In India, because we have good amount of immunity, we may still get the infection because of the immune escape mechanism, but we will get a milder infection, and we are seeing that with the B.7, we're not seeing severe infection, increase in hospitalization or increase in death, unlike China, where the population has not got good amount of basic immunity, and therefore they're seeing more hospitalization and deaths.
Dr. Guleria, you spoke about what China is dealing with. So we'll get into that a little bit in detail, just as a case study on what China has done. The aggressive approach with the zero COVID policy, we saw the protests that broke out, and then they had to sort of buckle, and they went to this restrictions to removing restrictions. So obviously from zero tolerance to sort of taking it, removing all the restrictions, it appears that somewhere in between they weren't really prepared for the situation, given the hospitalizations and the infrastructure. What did China get wrong here?
So I think China, the 2 things that China got wrong was, one was to keep on insisting on a zero tolerance policy, where they had try to get cases to be zero. This was not going to be possible when you have an infection which can be asymptomatic and which can be mild. And therefore, it was not going to be possible for them to control it. And this was causing a lot of economic problem. There was a lot of problems in the citizens who were having to stay locked down for a very long period of time, even when the infection was mild. At the same time, it caused a large part of the population to be vulnerable because they had never been exposed to the virus. And therefore, now with the new variant, once the zero COVID policy got lifted, they were going to get a serious infection, and China did not prepare for that. They did not expect that they would see such a surge in number of cases, and therefore, from the point of view of doing it in a gradual manner, rather than doing it abruptly, is causing a huge surge in the number of cases. But having said that, we must be very vigilant, because we know that when there's a surge in the number of cases, the chances of new variants emerging becomes much more, because as the virus multiplies much more, the chances of the virus mutating and becoming a new variant developing is higher. Therefore, we need to be vigilant. We need to really monitor very closely, have good surveillance in our country, especially in terms of sentinel surveillance from hospitals to see that there is no increase in hospital admissions. And those individuals who have fever, cough, sore throat, COVID-like symptoms should come forward and get themselves tested, because then only would we know how much is the number of cases, and we could be able to do genome sequences to pick up any new variant which may be emerging in our country.
Yeah. On that point, can I ask you, do you think there's enough testing being done? Point number one, do you think there's enough testing being done? Point number two, there are questions over whether we should be more vigilant at airports, given our experience in 2019 and 2020. What's your take on that?
So I think we should encourage more testing. We have stopped doing testing as aggressively as we were doing in the past. And that's because people are not coming forward. You know, everyone who gets fever, cough and cold, they do two things. Either they don't get themselves tested, take paracetamol and take symptomatic treatment and usually become all right with that and therefore don't bother. Or they do a rapid antigen test at home, and if they have COVID, they don't inform anyone and they would just isolate themselves. And really, that is no way that, from that point of view, you don't know the number of cases. And with the rapid antigen test, you don't have a sample to do genome sequencing. So you should come forward and get the RT-PCR testing done. Regarding the air travel, I think we were in a different situation as far as 2020 was concerned and now, because at that point in time, the virus, there was really very few cases in our country and we did not have any COVID in India, or we had very few cases. Now it's become a situation which is there globally, and it's going to be difficult to control it just by stopping travel or doing aggressive testing at the airport, because people transit from different places and you don't know who's come from which place, because you have a hub in the Middle East, you have hubs in Europe, and therefore I think that will not be practical. But I would really encourage individuals who have traveled and have flu-like symptoms or who have features suggestive of COVID to come forward and get themselves tested so that they know that they have COVID, and this sample can be tested from the genome sequencing point of view, which will allow the country to know whether there is a new variant emerging from people who have traveled from outside.
Yeah. But what is it about BF7 that Chinese vaccines have so far failed to tackle? You spoke about the vaccines perhaps being ineffective. That's what most experts are also saying about the Chinese vaccines. Vis-a-vis Indian vaccines, where do we stand regarding this variant? And what's your assessment on that?
So current data that we have is from the Indian vaccine suggests that the Indian vaccines are effective against Omicron and its sublineages. And the BF.7 is the sublineage of the Omicron variant. And we know that this variant can cause more infection. It can also cause infection in those who have had past infection. But because of the vaccination and the natural infection that we've had, it is not causing severe infection, hospitalization, or deaths. In China, we don't know about the efficacy of the local vaccine, the vaccine which are made in China. The data is not there, and its efficacy against the new variants, which have emerged as Omicron and its sub-lineages, is actually not there. And like I said, this combined with the fact that a large number of population has not been exposed to the virus and has not been vaccinated, makes it a situation which is causing problems in that country.
Try and club that my two questions into one, and I have those questions on the wall, so I'll put the questions up. I've already asked you two of those questions, but I'm going to repeat those questions. If I can pull up these questions on the wall right now, and I'm going to repeat that. Question number one was, should India take a call on stopping all incoming flights from China? You've already responded to that. My second question was, okay, let me take that question. Second one was, should there be a more aggressive testing and genome sequencing? I think you've responded to that already. Let's put up the questions right now, one after the other. Should India take a call on stopping all incoming flights from China? Dr. Guleria has already responded to that. Let's look at the next question. The next question is, should there be a blanket ban on political rallies and marches? So keep this question, keep your answer on this question ready, Dr. Guleria. I'll ask you another follow-up. Should there be a blanket ban on political rallies and marches? And secondly, should there be a bigger campaign to encourage precaution doses? Because we just pulled up some data that suggests that it's less than 30%, Dr. Guleria. So point number one on political rallies and marches. Secondly, on the precaution dose, or what is otherwise called the booster dose. Dr. Guleria.
and marches are concerned, what I would say is that we would tell people who are at high risk, those with comorbidities and the elderly, to avoid such marches and such crowded places. One positive thing is that most of these rallies and marches are in the outdoor environment where chances of spread is less. It's more if it's a closed indoor environment. Secondly, I would encourage that everyone who really goes for these rallies or functions or marches should wear a mask. At least that will give some protection. But we are in a better situation, and therefore I think there is no need to panic right now. Regarding the question about the precautionary dose, I think it's very important. Now a large number of people who are eligible for the precautionary dose are not coming forward because they feel COVID is over and we don't need to now get ourselves vaccinated because the story is over. I would just like to re-emphasize that story is not over. The virus is still here. It is evolving, and prevention is better than cure. Therefore, you should get yourself vaccinated. Even if you get a mild illness and you are not vaccinated, there is a higher chance that you may have long COVID and which may cause more problems. Therefore, to protect yourself, both from severe COVID and from long COVID, I would really suggest that people should come forward and take the precautionary dose for whom it is due.
Yeah. Dr. Guleria, appreciate you joining us on Republic TV this evening and taking all those questions. Thank you, sir. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for your time. And while I thank Dr. Randeep Guleria, let me also tell you that Dr. Rai, the past Secretary General of IMA, is joining us on the show. But before that, let's show you some graphics. A lot of people are asking questions this evening about what the BF7 variant is. If I can pull up that graphic quickly, the BF7 variant, 4 cases of which have been detected in India, reported in India since October. These are not recent cases. The Gujarat government has also come on record and said these are not new cases. These are cases that were detected in October, and treatment was given. The patients were isolated. One of the patients had traveled from overseas. Now, let's tell you a little about the deadly BF7 variant. There were 4 cases. It's not 3, 4 cases of Omicron subvariant BF7 in India so far. The BF7, this is the variant that is driving China's sudden COVID surge. It's a highly transmissible Omicron strain. It's a sublineage of Omicron variant BA5 and has the strongest infection ability. Highly transmissible, it has a shorter incubation period, has a higher capacity to cause reinfection. And a report suggesting, an expert saying that BF7 can infect even those who are vaccinated, like what is happening in China. Some of the estimates saying that millions of people may already be infected or may get infected in the coming days. So that's the situation. Let's go across to Dr. Rai. Dr. Rai, good evening. Can you hear me, Dr. Rai? Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So quickly, if I can get your view on we've been discussing vaccines. The Chinese vaccine, it appears, was a dud. And the same Chinese vaccine was given a big thumbs up by the WHO, which still playing ball with Covaxin. What do you make of what's going on in China?
It's a well-known fact that China is the person those who are just cheating the whole of the world. Last when the corona started from the Wuhan, they were the person who hid every information from the globe, and they never declared that they are having this sort of problem, and the whole world should be cautious about this one. And as far as the vaccines are concerned, it was in the news also. The China vaccine has failed miserably. Whatever vaccine they have given, it is not affecting at all. And still today also, when he's having a lot of problems there, he's not sharing his agony with any country in the world. At least as far as WHO is concerned, I think the WHO chief is the godfather of the China's person. So he's also supporting that way. I don't mind in saying all these things. Because last time also, he was saying that nothing is there, and today again the problem has come up. Now, as far as our country is concerned, we are thankful to our Prime Minister and to the doctors community. We are proud of our doctor community that we have vaccinated more than 220 crores vaccination has been given, and majority has taken the booster dose also. And from your side, on your channel, through your channel, I will request to all the person who have not taken the booster dose, kindly go and take the booster dose. Because that is the only thing which is going to save us. One thing. Second thing, we have to observe appropriate protocol of the COVID. Then only we will be safe. And the country and the government will have to take action as far as the flights coming from China, Japan, Australia and other countries where this infection has gone. They should screen the person fully, they should test them, then only they should be allowed. Rather, even if the question comes of cancelling the flights, they should not hesitate, because last 2 years were horrible for our country, and we don't want to have such type of position in the future also. This is my suggestion in that way to the government also, and particularly government should take initiative of vaccinating the younger children, because our children are not vaccinated. So we have to protect them also. If they are infected, they will take the infection to the house. Isolation with the children is impossible. So if that is the thing which we are concerned about.
Thank you, Dr. Rai, for joining us on the biggest story tonight here on Republic. Thank you very much. I think you put it very well in a nutshell. Also, just getting in some news that Chinese travelers have been put under watch. The breaking news update that I have, let me pull up the graphics as well. The government will release fresh guidelines soon for travelers, especially guidelines for travelers coming to India from China. And the focus is on these Chinese travelers as the country is seeing a huge surge in COVID cases. Nobody has an idea or the exact number of how many cases have been reported in China. China, in fact, has not put out those numbers. It's not recording the number of cases being reported anymore as per the details from the Chinese media itself. So nobody knows approximately how many cases have been recorded in China. It could be in the millions. But let's look at what China got wrong. Some of the learnings as China fails once again. What did China do? China tried an aggressive approach and it failed. The China zero COVID policy faced protests, and there was a complete non-scientific approach. After that, they relaxed restrictions. They were testing. They relaxed the restrictions and also the testing post the protests, and China was not prepared. Hospitals, medical infrastructure was not prepared. So some of the learnings perhaps from there for India as well. And now some questions on whether people are asking whether India is prepared, and there are questions being asked primarily because we are meeting today and whether we can do more at this point. Let's look at some of those concerns and points. Concern number one, masks are still not mandatory. They're not mandatory anymore, of course, across the country. The second concern being that random testing has begun today at airports especially. The third concern is that just 27 to 28% of Indians who are eligible for the precaution dose have taken the dose. So it's only about one-fourth coverage for the precaution dose, which is a concern. The fourth biggest concern is that cases detected in political rallies, like in the case of Bharat Jodo Yatra, many cases being reported, including the Himachal Chief Minister, who went to the Bharat Jodo Yatra, has tested positive. Concern number 5, all flights from China not stopped yet. Guidelines will be issued. We'll leave it at that. It's also a top focus through the day here on Republic TV, taking a short break.